Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in. In this video, I'm going to provide a summary and analysis of Edgar Allan Poe's short story, The Cask of Amontillado. So let's get right into it. We'll go through plot points together, and one at a time, we'll focus in on some key elements and probe for some deeper analysis for a deeper understanding of Poe's masterful work, The Cask of Amontillado. So let's start from the beginning. We have our main character, Montresor, and through his perspective, we get the whole story. He is what is called an unreliable narrator. We get the story from first-person perspective, and in literature, we often see what is called the unreliable narrator, someone who tells the story that readers really need to scrutinize and question as they are retold these events that transpired. Often it is a very one-sided story. Some of the events may be skewed, they may be twisted a little bit because our narrator wants our empathy. He wants readers to side with him often, and so to achieve those ends, there may be a difference between what actually happened and the story that we're told. And so through the eyes of Montresor, we learn right in the opening lines of the story that he has endured 1,000 injuries, but when Fortunato ventured upon insult, that is when he vowed revenge. Now we have to ask ourselves, as we read the story, is there anything to suggest that these injuries, that these insults were intentional? No. Is there anything to suggest that these injuries or insults were even real? No. Really, this vague description in the opening lines of Poe's short story are all we learn about the atrocities or crimes or insults or anything that has been committed against our narrator Montresor. And we meet the perpetrator of these crimes quickly in the beginning of the story, encountered by Montresor on the streets of Carnival, these festivities leading up to Easter. And people are dressed in these costumes and have these elaborate masks, and they're celebrating what we know of as Lent, which is a Christian practice where people give up something as a sacrifice leading up to the celebration of Easter. Usually starts at the end of February through March and then ends at Easter. And there's all these parties and drinking and people having a good time. And it is here that Montresor encounters Fortunato, not by accident, mind you. He masterfully manipulates Fortunato into following him to the catacombs, this burial place beneath his mansion. We know he's well-to-do, he's got servants, he's got an elaborate series of catacombs that house the remains of his ancestors. And through a simple test of Fortunato's ego and pride, we have Montresor leading Fortunato to the catacombs, this damp, dark, creepy place beneath his home. And it is there that we see Montresor cunningly reinforce Fortunato's resolve to follow him, to make sure that the Cask of Amontillado, this wine that is a fine wine, is legitimate, that it is an actual Amontillado. We learn that they are both wine connoisseurs, and Montresor keeps referencing someone else who he thinks may be more of an expert. His name is Lucchese. He might be able to help Montresor better. And it is through this subtlety that Fortunato is certain that he needs to follow Montresor wherever he needs to go to make sure that he's the one who can verify the legitimacy of the wine. And it is during a coughing fit down in the catacombs after Fortunato has to stop and catch his breath, and he's coughing, and we've got Montresor encouraging him, maybe you really should go back. You're coughing a lot. It's damp. It's dark down here. And Fortunato comments, a cough won't kill me. And there's some dramatic irony as Montresor comments, no, a cough won't kill you. We know that he's got sinister plans for Fortunato, and so they press on. And it is also during their travel through these damp, dark tunnels to where Montresor is luring his victim that we learn Fortunato is a Freemason, which if you search, you learn Freemasons are a secret society of people largely devoted to charity. So we even maybe have some evidence that would indicate Fortunato is really not a bad guy. As much as Montresor would have us believe that what he's doing is justified, there's a little bit of evidence that would suggest the contrary about Fortunato. And he says, are you of the Freemasons? And he does this secret hand gesture that the Freemasons use to identify each other without revealing who they are to others. And we get a play on the dual meaning of Mason. A Mason meaning a member of this Freemason secret society, and that of a stone worker. Because when Fortunato asks Montresor, are you of the Freemasons? Montresor says yes, and he holds up this trowel, something that a stone worker would use to lay mortar and cement on stone and bricks. And again, we've got some dramatic irony. Fortunato does not know what's coming, and we're getting a lot of clues from Montresor. And it is at the end of this tunnel, we've got a hallway, this recessed area. It's a 4-foot long doorway it's got an enclosure all around on each side and up on the top. And at the end of this 4-foot doorway, we've got a solid piece of granite. And we're told there's steel staples with a chain. And as Fortunato walks into this dead end, Montresor is right on his heels, and before he can even realize what's happening, he's got him chained in this dark dead end. And before he can even realize what's happening, Montresor is laying bricks to bury him alive in these catacombs. And being drunk made this pretty easy for Montresor to quickly do this without Fortunato realizing what was happening. Montresor's sober. Fortunato's been having a good time. He's not sober. He's not. His wits aren't the sharpest. And as he's sobering up throughout this process of Montresor bricking him in, he starts to scream because he realizes the gravity of the situation. He starts yelling really, really loud. And Montresor briefly panics and pulls out his sword and considers silencing him because he fears someone might hear him. But after giving a brief pause, he realizes that no one is going to hear Fortunato screaming, and he decides, in order to silence him, he's going to scream back at him. So we've got this screaming from Fortunato, and then all of a sudden Montresor is screaming back at him until all we have is silence. And Fortunato starts to laugh because he doesn't know what else to do. So it's one of those situations where rather than cry, you laugh. And Fortunato continues to try and make sense of the situation as Montresor bricks him into a damp, dark grave. And as he's leaving, there's one brick left, and he hasn't responded to Montresor's attempts to talk with him, and it's really dark, he can't see, so Montresor puts in his torch and gets one last glimpse of Fortunato chained before he puts in the last brick and puts the last of the mortar on, sealing his fate. And as he's leaving the catacombs, he comments how dark and damp and how this setting has affected his heart. The dampness is hurting my heart. I must flee. And it's because of this that some readers have asserted that he may have felt a little remorse at what he had done. They took the comments about his heart to mean he might feel some remorse. But then again, he might just really not do well in the damp dark and needed to leave that place. We learn in the closing lines of the story that these events had transpired 50 years before, and no one had found Fortunato's body since. I hope you found this summary and analysis video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe.